And now I'm going to have another of my political candidate interview series. This one is Jim Higgins. He is Libertarian candidate for the office of governor. And before I get into interviewing Jim, I just want to reiterate how this works. We invite everyone of all political parties that run for the offices that we follow, which is pretty much the district commissioners and up. And we invite them all to come in for an interview. And when they come in, this is when my opinion hat, I'm not going to lie, I'm an opinionated person, but that's not my role here. My role here is to be a true journalist, to be able to let these candidates speak for themselves on the various issues so that you, the listener, no matter what your thoughts and beliefs are, can be able to make good decisions come election day. And that's the role here, and I feel honored to do it. And let's go ahead and start out now with introducing Jim Higgins, candidate, Libertarian candidate for the office of Missouri State Governor. Good morning. And now tell me a little bit about yourself, Jim, and what it is that made you want to seek the office of governor.
Well, it's been building up for a long time. I have been a libertarian for a long time, I don't know, since the early 70s or something. And I ran for Congress in the 90s several times, and then I kind of took a break. I got a little burned out, and I took a break. And I got tired of yelling at the TV, so now I'm going to run for governor. A couple friends of mine called me and asked me if I could run for governor, and I said, yeah, the time is right, so I'm going to do it.
Now, do you have a Libertarian opponent, or are you the Libertarian candidate?
No, there's no primary contest. I will be on the ballot in November, so I'll go right through the primary, and I'll be on the ballot in November.
So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you've done, where you grew up, and kind of what you've done in your life leading up to this point where you're seeking the office of governor.
Okay, well, I grew up in Ohio and spent most of my, I came to St. Louis, about 30 years ago or something, and got married then here, met my wife here and got married. And I was active in the Libertarian Party in Ohio, and then active in Missouri. In '92, we got on the ballot. We petitioned to get on the ballot. And we've had continuous ballot access since then in Missouri. So we're kind of proud of that. You know, other third parties have come and gone, but you know, we're still here. You know, we're consistently on the ballot and running candidates. So, you know, my dad was a union man, a Democrat. And I really didn't have any political convictions until I discovered libertarian ideas, and then, you know, it kind of hit me. And I've been active ever since then, since the early 70s.
So now what do you do in addition to having run for these offices? What do you do with your time, I mean, as your job, your career, up to this point?
Oh, well, I have a technical background. My degree is in civil engineering. And I worked as a civil engineer for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, and then I got involved with computers. They were more interesting to me. The pay might not have been any better, but the computers were more interesting. And I like outdoor stuff. I have some land in Washington County, and I go down there and cut wood and stuff like that.
So let's start out, I guess, with the biggest issues facing the state. What do you see as the biggest issues facing the state right now?
Well, we've got, you know, education is a big issue. We keep throwing more money at education, and, you know, it doesn't seem to be working. And so we need to come up with a little more innovation as far as competition for the schools, and a little more innovation, provide some incentives to try different things. You know, education, I think, is like 25% of the budget or something. It's a big chunk. So that's a big focus right there.
And as you look at education, you have a couple of districts right now in the state, the city of St. Louis, Kansas City, and I'm wanting to think the other one is Jennings or Riverview Gardens. I'm not sure which, but they are all now unaccredited districts. So that, they're basically saying, okay, these districts, they're so failing that they can't even get accredited. Well, I mean, in the last session, the legislature wanting to see if maybe, the Turner Fix lawsuit of were they going to send these kids into neighboring school districts, and then the courts struck that down so that the neighboring school districts don't have to take these kids. What do you do about these kids that are trapped in districts that are unaccredited?
Well, like I said, we have to try different things. I mean, everybody, the way the system is set up now, everybody has to jump through the same hoops. And maybe that's not the answer to everybody. Maybe we have to try different things. Maybe we have to try job training for people and not concentrate on academics as much. And the way to do that is to provide more competition and allow different schools. Charter schools was a good start. Some of them have worked, some of them have not. But try different charter schools that have a different approach, and then parents can pick and choose, which schools they want their children to go to and which would be more beneficial for their kids.
Okay, so education being a big issue, budget. Budget's a big issue. What do you think about the size and the scope right now of the state's budget?
It's too big. We had the budget was $23 billion last year, and then next year it's going to be $24 billion. That's going in the wrong direction. The second worst thing you can do with your money is send it to Jefferson City. The worst thing you do is send it to Washington. So it goes all the way up the chain. You have tax collectors and you have companies and their payroll departments collecting taxes, and it goes all the way up the chain. And then the bureaucrats get a hold of it. We have to pay for an army of bureaucrats, and then it gets filtered back down. There's a lot of overhead with having a big state budget, and the more we can keep the money, tax money, and people's private money localized, the better and more efficient we'll be.
Okay, and we have a phone call.
Okay.
With a question, if you want to go ahead and grab that headset.
All right.
There we go, and to the phone we go. That's you. You're on the air. Hello.
Hey, good morning, and a nice cool day today.
Yeah.
Hey, I just want to know how he would, or what he thinks about the Supreme Court ruling Obamacare constitutional, even the individual mandate, which they say is a tax because the federal government can tax individuals for tanks and airplanes and things like that. And I'll listen off the air. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that's the big question of the day, isn't it? I don't know. I don't know if the Supreme Court's announced it or not, but obviously the individual mandate is a bad thing. You can't. It's just wrong to force people to purchase a product that they wouldn't do on their own. So I hope the Supreme Court
they have ruled it all. They have saved it all.
They have
that
kept
is the
it.
news. They have kept, and that's a little bit of breaking news in the midst of this. The High Court has held the individual insurance requirement at the heart of the plan. Now, the court did find that problems with the expansion of Medicaid, but even there said the expansion could proceed as long as the federal government does not threaten to withhold states' entire Medicaid allotment if they don't take part in the law's extension. Turns that Roberts, Chief Justice John Roberts, joined the four liberal members of the court in upholding the Obamacare legislation. So that is where it stands right now.
Okay, well...
They just ruled on that. I knew they were going to be ruling on that at 9.
Yeah. It could have gone either way. Frankly, I'm kind of surprised they ruled that way. The Supreme Court gets it right, in my view, quite a bit of the time, but I guess not. So, I don't know. Yeah, the mandate, they expanded Medicare. The federal government expanded Medicare and then passed that obligation onto the states and say, here, you figure out how to do this. Well, that doesn't seem right to me either, but...
Well, and let's get into that now, because it's a big issue. The health care, I've had a number of state representatives in here before, and, a lot of controversy of, okay, whether or not the state would go ahead and form a health insurance exchange, because if the state did not do that, then the federal government would come at it with a pretty heavy hammer.
Right.
And the federal government expecting, I guess, to expand the rolls, I've heard by as much as by another 60% of what they are now. You're running for the office of governor, Jim Higgins, Libertarian candidate. What would you do as governor as far as where you stand at the state of Missouri having passed, I think, by a well over 70% margin, saying that they did not support an individual mandate, also that they don't support health exchanges? What would you do if you were governor between what the federal government is now mandating and the Supreme Court is upholding and what the state is obligated to do?
Well, we'll definitely have to look into that. I mean, some states, I think Virginia has actually passed a law to not comply with the individual mandate. So if we can do that, if we can put up a fight that way, I'd be all for that.
Would you support it?
Yes, absolutely, yeah.
Even though that might mean a decrease in federal funding on the Medicaid?
Well, yeah, we have to draw the line somewhere. I mean, they can't just keep doing this to us, and we have to say that no more. We're trying to run our states, and we're trying to balance our budgets and things like that. So we can't keep complying with these unfunded mandates that you pass down to us.
Okay, and some of the other issues that are going on right now, the sales tax issue, that's another big issue that's taken place in the state. Another court ruling in this case to say that if you buy a car in another state, the state of Missouri, and you live in Missouri, the state of Missouri can collect the state taxes, but the local and the community taxes would not be able to be collected. Now, the governor has threatened to veto it, although he hasn't yet. The legislature passed a bill and said, okay, well, we're redefining a sale. We're redefining a sale to say that the sale consummates when you actually register it, which means you would be in the state of Missouri. What is your feeling on that the legislature passed it? The governor has threatened to veto it, although he hasn't yet. What's your view on that?
Well, I agree with the governor on that. If they change the way the tax is, a way they consider a tax, well, actually, that's implementing a new tax. And under the Hancock II Amendment, which has been in effect for like 20 years or something, you can't raise taxes on people, and that was in there for a good reason, is you can't raise taxes on people without their vote. So that's what you're doing. If you change the definition of a sales tax, you're actually placing a new tax on people without their vote. And so that needs to take place first.
So what about these, in a little bit into economic development, what about these car dealers, especially car dealers that are, on the border of another state? And lots of Missouri is, so most of the urbanized areas are very close to state borders. What do you say to those dealerships that suddenly now are looking at a competitive advantage across whatever boundary line?
Well, I'm not sure where a competitive disadvantage.
They're a competitive disadvantage.
Yeah. Well, whatever state they're buying the car in, I'm sure there's a sales tax there. So I'm not sure what kind of disadvantage you
have to pay. The way that a sales tax works when you buy an automobile is that the tax is actually tied to where you live, not where you buy. So the court ruled that the state of Missouri could go ahead and still tax on the basis of where people could live. However, the localities, the municipalities, the ambulance districts, the fire protection districts, that they could not collect.
I think they can if there's a vote of the people, but so that might
the
be.
people would have to vote for that.
Right.
Okay.
But I mean, if they can buy cars less expensively in another state, well, that helps the consumer. And if the businessmen want a competitive advantage, well, maybe we should lower sales taxes in here, and then increase sales that way. I don't know, but in the end, the consumer benefits.
Now, economic development, that's a big issue that everybody's concerned about, the number of jobs. If you were to be elected governor, and I'm speaking with Jim Higgins, he's a Libertarian candidate for governor in the state of Missouri, what would you see as the role of the state in helping economic development, and what would you do as governor? Well,
I as a libertarian, we're for the free market, and we have to get rid of. There's a big cost of business in regulation, so we have to cut back on the regulation, and then we're using taxes to. I think Missouri. I read someplace where Missouri has one of the highest corporate subsidies of any state. So, the idea is to attract businesses and bring them into the state, but you're only favoring specific companies or specific areas. So we can't do that. We need a level playing field, and then let small businesses develop, and without providing subsidies to these companies, there's more private money that can circulate in the economy and get the economy going that way.
Okay, and speaking of workplace environments, let's go to the Second Injury Fund. The fund obviously seriously underfunded at this point in time. There was legislation put through to the governor to maybe help fix that and alleviate it, and vetoed. So tell me about what you would do with the Second Injury Fund.
Frankly, I haven't really looked into that.
That's okay. Yeah. The Second Injury Fund is the fund that if someone gets injured in, let's say they get injured one place and then they get injured at work, the Second Injury Fund is the one that helps to protect those employers by, or at least that's what it was set up to do, to help the employers by saying, okay, well, here's a fund so that if you're the second injury, they don't have to pay for, you hurt your back at home, and then you came into work and you re-injured it, well, that's a second injury.
Right.
The problem with it right now, obviously, is that the caseload is way backloaded on it, and there's not the money to pay the claims.
Yeah, and I think it's all or nothing. If the company loses the claim, they're paying the 100% of it, and so I think if they can show that the injury was contributed to by stuff at another location or at home, it should be kind of proportioned accordingly.
And now the highway situation, and when we look in the state of Missouri, it's interesting that going into maybe the 2006 session, around there, the biggest thing all over the state was they were talking about 44 is crumbling, 70 is crumbling. these are dangerous. And, of course, a lot of this spawned, too, by what happened in Minnesota with the bridge there. And I've never really been able to figure out, was it really that bad at the time that they're talking about it, what the state of those highways are. But at some point in time, they will need to be addressed. There's talk of toll roads, talk of taxes. What would you support in terms of highway improvements?
Well, the toll road situation just doesn't appeal to me. We have the gas tax. If we have to, maybe we can raise the gas tax. But I don't know how bad the highways are. I mean, they're on 70. They're talking about expanding the lanes and expanding the interchanges, and I'm not sure if we need to do that. We need to keep the bridges safe, obviously, with better inspections and maintenance and things like that. But as far as paying for it, I don't know. The interstate system was paid by the federal government, and originally they said no toll roads, and then they made exceptions here and there. So I'm just flat against toll roads.
Okay, and I'd like to talk a little bit about Libertarian Party and the Libertarian principles. I know that it's been a big year. Ron Paul has done an excellent job in bringing that, and I know he's a Republican, but he's enthused a lot of libertarians, and he's gotten a lot of young people in particular to get enthusiastic about the process. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the Libertarian Party, what it has been, and kind of where it is now that you have so much connectivity through Facebook and able to go out and reach out to social networks. Tell me a little bit about the Libertarian philosophy as opposed to the other two major political parties.
Okay, well, we are basically, we're just we want to redefine the function and role of government, basically. We want to roll back the power and role of government at all levels in favor of individual liberty. The conservatives give a lot of nice speeches about, freedom and cutting back on government, but and they sometimes cut taxes, but they really haven't cut back on spending or programs or anything. So we're across the board 100% freedom. We're for civil liberties, where the government should not try to control your personal life. So we agree with the liberals on that. We're for free market, less regulation, no subsidies for businesses. So we're not for corporate welfare. And then we're for, and then at a national level, this isn't a state level, but at a national level, we have a non-interventionist foreign policy. Is that we've had too many wars. The war in Iraq was we conducted that. That was a unprovoked war based on lies. And we've just been fighting war after war and draining the treasury. And so we were against that in the beginning. The party initially started in the early 70s because we were against the war. We were pro-free market, and we were against the war in Vietnam. So it didn't mesh with the conservatives. So we started our own party. Okay,
and as far as your own personal style goes, and I'm speaking with Jim Higgins. He's a Libertarian candidate for governor of the state of Missouri. Personally, what do you think are the personal attributes and characteristics that you have that you think would make you a good governor of the state of Missouri?
Well, in my workplace, I have to solve problems logically, and I have to listen to people. Before you can solve a problem, you have to know what the problem is. I mean, people will come to me and say, "Well, I need this and I need that." Well, why do you need that? And what is the actual problem? So I'm good at listening to people and analyzing the problems. And and some people might disagree with me, but I think I'm pretty level-headed, and I can listen to all sides and get them to work together, and try to approach these things in a logical, rational way.
Okay, and the closing question, this is when you get to state your case. Why should people who are listening right now vote for you, Jim Higgins, to be governor of the state of Missouri on the Libertarian ticket, both in the primary and then, of course, you're unopposed there, and also, I guess, in the general?
Well, the current situation isn't working. Excuse me. The liberals and conservatives have had their debate, I don't know, 50, 70 years. It goes back, the pendulum goes back and forth. They give the liberals a chance, and that doesn't work. They give the conservatives a chance, and that doesn't work. So it goes back and forth. But it's because they each have their own good points, but they also have their own bad points. And so the Libertarians are consistently individual liberty. We feel we take the best of both worlds from both the liberals and conservatives. And I've heard people tell me, "Oh yeah, I'll vote for you. I support you and I agree with you, but I'm going to vote for one of the major parties because they have a chance to win." Well, you're not going to get there unless you give us a chance, and we can't get there from here. You have to kind of build up, and if people would show us some support, the next time around we'll get more respect.
All right, and if people want to find out more about your candidacy, to contact you, reach you, how can they do that?
The best way is to look up my website, and then you can contact me there. The website is LPMO4gov.com. So Libertarian Party Missouri for gov.com.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today, and best of luck with the rest of your campaign.
Thank you.
All right, and we're going to take a